You're very welcome to another Lighthouse Wellness Community podcast. My name's Donagh McKeown.
My name is Frank O'Connor. This program is designed to encourage open conversation around wellness, mindfulness, and healing. As part of the Irish diaspora, Donagh and I would like to bring an Irish dimension to this conversation. Our hope is to break through the stigma around mental health issues and to bring awareness to the many ways to recovery and to a healthy way of life.
Well, it's welcome back to the podcasting world, Frank, with something untoward to report in the meantime since we've been here.
Yeah, I wanted to bring it up. The idea was, what do we do? What we want to talk about today, what do we do when something unexpected happens, or in the vernacular, what do we do when SHIT happens? Because it does. To all of us. And in my own case, I had to deal with quite a bit of pain over the last week. And what happened there, I was playing with my grandson, and Kevin decided that granddad and grandson should race. So we started racing, and essentially we tripped over each other and took a fall. I got banged up on my hand and my face and stuff, which is healed fine. But I did injure my shoulder. And I've been dealing with that for the last 10, 12 days, chiropractors, yoga therapy, all sorts of things. But it has given me a lot of pain, especially at nighttime. I've been really struggling with sleep. So that throws the entire normal routine out the window. And so my question today was, and looking at myself too, how do we deal with something like that when it happens? But we're moving along normally through life, and then something comes in that just completely throws everything out. Our normal routine is out of the way. And for me this week, it was learning to deal with pain. I haven't had that experience in quite some time, and not letting it affect my well-being. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So could we rephrase it to mean trauma? I mean, it's a physical trauma in this instance, and it throws up problems afterwards. But equally, we can have emotional trauma. We can have all sorts of aspects. So we're kind of dealing with that immediacy of trauma. I mean, we'll all have examples. Yours is more immediate than perhaps any that I have had in the last few years. So what was the immediate impact? I don't want to bring you back with too much pain or kind of frightening memories, but were you thrown out of jolt emotionally?
Oh, yes, for sure. And, for interesting to me, because you think you're going along in a very stable state, which I have been for a long time. No great ups, no great downs. And then boom. So the first thing was the first night of pain, realizing, I'm not sleeping. I'm not dealing with, waking up in pain. I don't like taking pain pills for many reasons, but a big one is my stomach just doesn't deal well with ibuprofen or any of those things. So I went to a natural route, trying to emotionally be settled, be okay, was a challenge. And then using my meditation to walk through the pain. And again, a good example to me, my own example this week, was meditation can absolutely bring me through, but it's a more difficult process when you introduce PAIN, put pain in there. It's a much more difficult process.
It's always there, if only in the background sometimes, but then it comes, it's not even within consciousness. It just kind of suddenly obviously gets painful again for reasons that you can't exactly explain. I suppose that's a frustration. A break takes time to heal. I imagine I've never broken anything, but the pain instantly you would imagine would dissipate. But with this, it's coming backwards and forwards. So
yeah, it's been chronic essentially. I mean, it seems to be fine during the day, which is interesting. But when I lie down at nighttime, try to go to sleep, boom, that's when it comes in. So a couple of things that I'm learning. One is that life happens. Things are going to happen regardless of how well I may feel emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Life is going to happen. Something's going to come in that is not planned. And secondly, dealing with the pain has been very enlightening, because I also see that it has a flow to it, that emotionally and psychologically I'm also vested in the pain, because I see as I relax in meditation that it begins to dissipate. And as I get a little anxious or tense, it comes right back in again. So that has quite a few lessons inherent in it for me as well, to see how much my state of mind has an impact on my body. Now, the good thing is nothing was broken, Donna, but there's a pretty severe sprain on that shoulder over there.
There'll be many people listening who have constant pain, perhaps through arthritis or Crohn's disease is another one that kind of affects people where the outer extremities or I mean, there's no feeling, but there's a certain amount of pain with a certain amount of it too. This, what you say about meditation in itself, could be an answer for some of that pain relief.
Well, first of all, huge empathy to folks out there who are dealing with chronic pain. It really is a tough one. And physically, yes, but I think even more so the psychological impact that the pain has on one. It just throws you into, it's very hard to stay stable. You know, you tend to go down, or at least I found myself going, oh, I'm going down here out of my normal range of feeling, you know, if the range is pretty stable here, it was dropping. So huge empathy there. And I do want to, like Donna said, share the benefits for sure of meditation in dealing with pain. I know it's a little more difficult. So I would say find a technique. And the one I use is going to breath, because essentially brain controls pain. It all comes back to mind or brain, in the sense that if I'm in a state where I'm relaxed, the brain will come with me. The brain will come with me. If I stay tense, the brain will feel that, and the pain seems to multiply or amplify. So the first thing that I'm saying is go to breath. So what I mean by that is simply counting breath, you know, and I'll do it later in the meditation today. But a very simple process of counting breath: 1 in and out, 2 in and out, and go up to 10 and repeat that process. Now what we're doing there is simply taking attention away from the mind and even the pain body as well. It will be there and it will come back. But the nice thing is we can also bring attention back to the breath over and over again. Now that seems like a simple, very silly thing to do, but what begins to happen after a short period of time is that mind begins to slow down. And it actually at one point will stop thinking. And once mind begins or ceases to think, the pain body also begins to react and calm down as well. So that would be the first thing I would say.
Well, I'm not a scientist, but I just think, I'm even thinking of some of the advertisements you would see for pain relief, where the medicine, wherever it is, it goes to your brain and slows down the kind of impulses backwards and forwards through your kind of your nervous system. So you're doing that. If you're quietening the brain, you're doing exactly what many of those drugs are talking about doing.
Yeah, ibuprofen, the muscle relaxer. You know what? The idea is to relax. The idea is to relax, and the idea about meditation is also to relax. So I found a good example over the last couple of nights. Waking up, usually it always seems to be around 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, in pain. The natural inclination is to get up, start moving around, do something different, distract, and then giving myself permission to stay there, to stay with what's going on, stay with the pain, and then take the attention away from the pain by going to the breath, breathing in, breathing out, in the process I just spoke about. Not saying this is easy. It's easy. It's a very simple process. The challenge is to just stay with the attention on the breath, keep my attention going back to the breath. And then I find everything begins to slow down. And as the breathing slows down, the thinking slows down, and the obsession with the pain begins to slow down. So that's what's been happening for me, and it's been, a really important set of sequences over the last particularly 5 or 6 days. Also, huge reminder to me to stay with what's really important. To stay with what's important, to stay with being quiet, to stay with the silence, to stay with my meditation practice.
It's very difficult for many of us. We're in busy lives, and something like that happens. You're trying to provide extra solution. It's the funniest thing, because you're talking about realizing that you're feeling the pain. That takes energy to do that, physical energy. So that means that you've got less to do with being yourself, as it were, of doing the routine circumstances. You've got less energy, and then the demand by your brain, your conscious or your subconscious or otherwise, is to try and come up with the solutions. You're kind of trying to juggle when you haven't got the same energy. You got to, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? So you've really been drained in about 4 different areas in 4 different ways, aren't you?
Yeah, and that's right, and it feels that way. Physically, energetically, the energy seems to drop also. Big thing for me, the learning again, I'll just stick with what I'm learning through this process. How really important it is to stay with my process of recovery that we've talked about all the time. That I've committed myself to be in a place of wellness and in a process of recovery at all times. Now, in the immediacy of trauma, whether that be emotional or psychological, for example, in severe depression or emotional trauma hits, because the pain at that moment in time is deep, it seems simpler and easier to go to a place of self-recovery, to put myself in a position where I'm dedicated to meditation, I'm dedicated to eating properly, I'm dedicated to exercise, I'm dedicated to going to see a psychologist if that's necessary, to going to community meetings with other like-minded souls. As we move on and things get well, as life begins to get a routine again, normalcy seems to set in, it's easy to veer away from the things that brought wellness to my life. So the big lesson for me this week, stay centered and stay focused on the essence of wellness and recovery, and continue to be dedicated on a daily basis to that process and to my meditation.
One thing that strikes me, and you are lucky because you've made that choice to continue those very practices that have made you well and continue to make you well. You recognise that. What about the situation where someone gets a little knockback like that and falls into, and it's not a blame here, falls into self-pity? Because we can easily do that. It's a poor me. It's a natural thing that you nearly have to counter straight away. You've got to the point where you recognise that this may happen, the poor me syndrome, so you kind of balance it back the other way. What about those who've been in or are in that situation? This is going wrong for me. This happened to me. That happened to me. It's all against me. The world's against me. What would you say to someone who might be listening, who's in that situation, which is a further down the road than you were? You and hopefully I are lucky to kind of recognise the importance of doing the work continuously.
Yeah, first of all, then I would say I totally identify with the self-pity. I totally identify at moments in my life where that was overpowering. The world is against me. What's the point of going on? Nobody wants me, nobody likes me, nobody understands me. All of those feelings I have experienced to a pretty deep level at times in my life. So first of all, I would say I understand. I identify with those feelings. The second part of it then is the question, do you or do I want to stay in that place? And if the answer is no, and I believe for most people, when you give them an opportunity to look at deep self-pity or deep depression, it's not a nice place. Nobody actually wants to stay focused or centered in that place. So if the answer is no, I do not want to stay there, the next question is a simple one. Are you willing to take some steps to take yourself out of that place? And for most people, again, I believe the answer is yes. So then we take a look at what are some simple steps, and it's like everything. Baby steps initially are valid and then we can build up strength. And your point in my case is correct. Over many, many months and many, many years of building blocks in place, it's easier for me to recognize today that I'm going back into self-pity, I'm going back into low forms of depression, I'm going back into allowing the pain, for example, this week, to take me to a space that I'm not really wanting to be. So as we build the blocks, the recognition kicks in. In my case, it didn't last very long before I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go to meditation immediately. So back to the person at the very beginning. Baby steps. Please reach out. Please reach out to somebody else and ask for help. As always, we've mentioned many times, that's a big, big part. You do not have to do this alone. If I found out anything in my life, is that I never ever have to be alone. There are people around me, family sometimes, and then in a group of friends who are willing to listen if I'm willing to talk. If it needs to go beyond that, seek professional help. And there's so much professional help available out there. So that would be the process, I would say. And the big thing, Donagh, is those building blocks as we begin, or as I began to get well and get stronger. I'll give you an example. If I go to the ATM and I withdraw money, it's there because there's money in the bank. And if I continue to withdraw money, but not put money into the bank, at some stage I will go to that ATM and there's nothing there because I have not been filling up the bank on the front end. Same way in recovery, in wellness. I've got to continue with my process, continue putting on a daily basis something into the bank. So when the SHIT happens, which happened to me this week, I can go to my the bank ATM and withdraw what I need to at that moment in time.
I'll take it back to the biggest physical trauma I had. Well, obviously, we've talked about the depression circumstance before. This is another stage beyond that, where I had an illness that just came upon me almost from nowhere. I know why it came upon me now, be completely stress-induced. I was pulling myself this way, that way, not doing the work that we're talking about, trying to satisfy other people's needs. And poor little Donna suffered. Got a situation called Guillain-Barré syndrome, where your immune system starts to attack itself. The nervous system kind of gets weaker at the extremities. First of all, your fingers and your hands, which became, as far as I could find, paralyzed. Basically, it was like being in a stroke situation. Wow. Where I was losing the power of my arms and legs, couldn't explain it. Eventually, I got to the point where I couldn't get up to go to the bathroom. At one stage was crawling on my hands and knees very slowly to do it. Eventually got seated again, by which stage my sister had taken me into her home and said, we got to get you looked at here. Swings and roundabouts. I eventually got into a hospital situation where they identified within about 10 minutes what the circumstances were. And thankfully, very quickly, restorative medicine, more restorative immunoglobulin, it kind of kicks your immune system back into gear. At that time, I was on medication for recovering from depression. They told me to stop that. So I was very frightened. I was in trauma. I was in the trauma of, is this the end of my life? I wasn't feeling much physical pain. I was feeling lack of movement, but no strong, strenuous pain other than when I tried to move. Went into that hospital situation. They removed the drugs or told me no more of those, certainly until you recover, because one form of treatment stopped the other working. So I thought, my goodness, I'll never sleep again. This is really traumatic. within 3 to 4 days, 5 days actually, when the actual treatment worked, I was able to sleep. So the trauma of that instance was to tell me this is the end. And yet, when the proper medication arrived and the medication that was holding me back disappeared, I suddenly became a new person, and almost without my will, as it were. It just happened. And from thereafter, the mood kind of improved, and the same thing. Initially, if I think back to that time, I was in trauma, very much in trauma. But others helped me through, and that's the point that I came to. Others recognised I needed help. I didn't even get the chance to ask for help. Others came along, and other people do. Other people will. It's not quite as difficult as when you're in that deep, dark depression, but it's not removed from it. It's just asking and just saying, here, let's take a chance. And that's how I dealt with the trauma. I didn't. Others dealt for me, as it were. But yet, it brought me to recovery.
Yeah, the recognition that there's always help available. Even when I think that nobody's listening, even when I think there's nobody around me. If I go and just avail myself, I think is probably what the word is, avail myself of my circle of friends and family, and in your case, family moved in pretty quick. It's interesting, I talked to my dad, excuse me, who's coming up on his 92nd birthday back home in Ireland, and he's still very mobile. He walks down to town and gets his lunch every day, and he brings his laundry across the street to the laundrette, and is living living alone, but my family's close by, at 92 years of age, which is fantastic. Mentally, we still have great conversations and very mobile. But again, he said to me, as he said to me many, many times this week, or overtime, I should say, I said, gosh, Dad, isn't it so incredible that you're in this state at 92? And he said, yeah, believe me, Frank, having your health at 92 is everything. Because the way he said to me was, I don't know if I wasn't healthy the way I am, if I'd want to be here at 92. And I totally understand that statement. But because he's in great health at 92, life is still joyful for him. And again, for me, the lesson in that this week is, boy, yes, I see that. Even a small shift, in my case, is not dramatic, but it's pain. Not dramatic pain, but it's pain. But that small shift away from so-called normal well-being reminds me greatly of how I need to stay grateful when things are well.
It's not unlike the joke that they tell about, the going to the dentist. The best thing about going to the dentist is 5 minutes after you've got out of that chair and the pain is gone. So you have to go through the trauma to get to the relief, as it were, in that sense.
Yeah, there's another one I saw, which I think is really great. It was a photograph of an old washing machine, which I can remember from Ireland, with the rollers on it. If you remember that, Donna, they would, wash the clothes, and then there was a roller. In our case, it got very sophisticated because it was an electric roller.
Wow.
Prior to that, you had a hand turn, 2 little rollers, and you would push the clothes through. And the photograph showed a little doll stuck midway between the 2 rollers, obviously in pain. And the caption read, "The truth will set you free, but first it'll put you through the ringer." Right? Yeah. And I was like, oh gosh, that is so true. And that visual was like, boy, that is the truth. The truth of our state, of wherever we may be, being able to go there is difficult. But boy, facing it and being open to it, painful as it is, at the other side of that is this incredible sense of freedom. I did a little caption which I caught on Twitter this week, which said something very similar. I just put it on Facebook last night, which is, pretty much said the same thing, that our pain or our trauma that we've talked about, in it is the kernel of our freedom, right in the middle of that pain.
I was talking to another person within the last half hour. So it's about that fear. The fear that we fear most is the actual breakthrough to another opening, to something similar, somewhere along those lines. That we fear most is what's actually asking us to kind of break through and go further. Not that you have to go in front of a load of bears up in the mountain, which is fearful, but kind of metaphorically at least, it's similar.
Yeah, I've heard it explained two ways. There's a very simple process. Many people through the eons of time have laid out a plan to live a very simple, happy, peaceful life on this planet. And there are many books, spiritual books from the Bible to Buddhist literature, to Buddhist teachings, to Christian teachings, Islam teachings, Jewish teaching, all across the spectrum, that are a pathway to living a beautiful, peaceful, serene life. The issue for most of us, me included, is that many of us will not take that simple path. I needed to get hit with a 2x4 across the back of the head. And then I'm like, oh, gosh, that hurt. And then I get another one, and now it's bleeding. And I'm like, oh, this is really, really hurting, seriously. And eventually I'm like, I need to take a look at this and deal with this pain. And then I'm like, oh, what are the paths to recovery? All along that time, the simple, beautiful, peaceful path was available to me. But if you're like me, and my thinking is many of you out there are like myself and Donagh, you will not choose that simple, beautiful path. I have to go through the pain, go through the ringer to feel that freedom at the other end. It's an incredible thing about humanity, but many of us find ourselves in that space.
Psychosis, depression, number one. Guillain-Barré, number two. I don't think there's been two major ones since, but don't watch this space. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing, and again, I think truly both you and I are examples, having come through, in my case, severe depression, and being very honest about it, some attempted suicide, and in your case, psychosis. These are very deep, disturbing, serious problems for any human being, and yet here we sit. Here we sit as two human beings who have made it into our 60s and who are living peaceful, calm, somewhat serene lives. And that's miraculous. And actually, folks, that's why we're here. The only reason both Donagh and I are here is to share that message of hope and to share that message that it is possible, regardless of the set of circumstances that you find yourself in, to come to a place where life becomes meaningful again.
We've made it into our 60s. One of us is making it into his 65th birthday. Happy birthday, Frank.
Thank you, Donagh. Yeah, tomorrow, Saturday, we're podcasting on Friday, the 2nd. The 3rd of March is my actual 65th birthday, which is kind of, to me, actually incredible. I knew it was real because on the 1st of March, just yesterday, Medicare kicked in. Right? So I have my Medicare card, and Medicare is now available to me, which is like, oh, I never thought I would be so relieved to see a piece of paper, because as many of you out there know, paying for medical insurance in California or many places in the United States is extremely, extremely expensive. So that has now taken a pretty drastic drop. So this 65-year-old Irish boy is very grateful.
Well, congratulations and many happy bus trips to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Donagh.
You're listening to the Lighthouse Wellness Community podcast. My name is Donagh McKeown. With me, of course, obviously, Frank O'Connor. We're going to have a meditation.
Yeah, so today we'll keep it very simple. In light of what we just spoke about, going through the pain body experience, and I know many, many people out there have that in some small ways and some very severe ways. So the idea with the meditation is just bring attention to the breath initially, to get the voices in our head to begin to quieten down, to get to a place of silence. and I'll walk us through that process. And then we'll use the chanting and the music as a space to envelop the silence, to bring the silence into that, so you can use the meditation, the music and the chanting as a way to keep attention in the silence. Welcome to our moments of meditation. Today we're going to simply spend time in silence, spend time in presence, spend time with the music, allowing the music to embrace or envelop the silence within. So in order to get ourselves to a relaxed place, just breathe with me, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth deeply as you can. One deep breath. Now let's breathe in to the count of 5. We'll hold our breath to the count of 5. Breathe out to the count of 5 and hold our breath again, like in a square. It's called the box method of breathing. I'll guide us through that. So breathing in to the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release the breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now continue doing that box breathing method for a moment on your own. Now spend a moment becoming aware, cognizant of your physical body. In order to do that, just feel your feet on the floor. Feel your feet touching the ground on the floor. Feel your seat if you're sitting. Feel your hips and you're sitting and finding support on your seat. If you're lying down, just feel your entire body being supported. Now bring our attention to the head area, your head and face, and just notice what's going on there. If there's any tension there, just release. Bring your attention to your neck and shoulders area. Notice any tension or tightness in that area and release that too. Bring your attention to your chest area. If there's any tightness there, release that tightness. Bring your attention to your belly. Look for tightness or any feeling of tension in that area and consciously release that. Our thighs, calves and feet. Spend and bring attention to that area, those areas, and make sure all is released. And finally our arms and hands. Bring attention and awareness to those areas and release any tension. If you spend a moment now with your hand, both your hands, and just simply notice what is going on there. And for some people you may feel tingles or slight warmth in your hand. Some people may feel a cool energy. But you will notice, once we bring attention there, that something is always happening. There's a vibration, there is movement. Even though our hands may be still, there is movement there. And so it is with our entire physical body. Though resilient and sitting straight, there is always movement. And that movement can come with the breath. Simple way to do that. As you breathe into your entire body. And feel that breath move through your entire physical being. And as you breathe out any tension, tightness, anxiety. And we come to a place of rest. Now we'll take some time, a few moments to stay with the chanting and the music, and just allow it to permeate every cell in your physical body, every emotion in your emotional being, every energy in your energetic field. And just be with it for the next few moments. Maraha, Marahi, Maraha, 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 Harnyar, Atarnya, Harnyar, Atarnya, Jia, Jia. Jia. Let's bring our attention now back to the present moment and take a moment to be aware of the process we just came through. The process of just being in the moment with the sounds, free from thinking, free from anxiety, free from pain, simply being. And knowing and recognizing that these moments are always available to us. Now just come on back and feel your physical body. Once again, feel your feet on the ground. Feel your seat if you're sitting. Your entire body being supported if you're lying. Take a deep breath with me. Breathing in and out again deeply. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and come back. And that concludes our meditation for today. Thank you for joining us. Namaste and peace to all beings on our planet.
So thank you once again, Frank, for another wonderful meditation. We're going to break these down from now on in the next week or two. They're going to be separate items that you can check into as you like, certainly on YouTube to start out with, so that you have them as individual pieces. And we'll try and put them up as shorter podcasts as well. So look out for those. So from me, for another week, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you everybody. Have a wonderful week. Namaste. Peace to everybody.